All right. Well, welcome, everybody, to Agile. We're both glad to have folks here live. Clap. And you virtually, we appreciate y'all being here. We're going to get right into the discussion, but before I do that, I got to say a special thank you to all our wonderful sponsors as I point to the screen. And y'all know what I'm pointing at, but y'all can point at your screen if you like and look at all these wonderful. Okay, there we go. I was having some feedback from myself. It scared me. All right. Thank you to all our sponsors. Please click around, visit them. We do appreciate them sponsoring Agile. Oh my gosh, it has reached that time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are calling for papers for DevNexus. It is coming in April, this coming 2022. It will be in person. So if you are interested, we are also right now as we speak taking papers. We'll be taking them through November 15th. Please do not wait to the last minute to submit. Just as if you've got an idea, a concept, please feel free to send us a write-up of that and abstract. We'll be more than glad to review it. And we are certainly looking forward to reading all these wonderful papers. I'm one of the folks that takes a look at those, so thank you. Please send them on in. Right around the corner, Connect Tech is coming. It is on November 8th to the 10th. Please jump in and go to see I think they have they're going to be doing some, not only breakouts, but they'll also be doing some training as well, right? So they'll be doing some training, so take a look at the Connect Tech website, jump in there and sign up. They're looking forward to seeing you there, and again, that is in person at the Cobb Galleria. And like I said, I'm making this very short and quick. I'm going to introduce you to Leslie Brooks, and he's going to talk about BDD, how to do it badly. Take it away, Leslie.
Thank you. The reason that I'm going to talk about how to do it badly is because that's the way most people are doing it. And so I'm going to show you how they're doing it badly and the things to avoid, and then hopefully how to do it well. BDD is about where Agile was 15 years ago, where you've got a number of companies that are beginning to use it, experiment with it, and some of them are reporting great results. And some of them are like the company that I knew of, where they said, oh yes, we're Agile. We've got Scrum every day, and we've got 3-month sprints. Yes, I went 3-month sprints. Okay, I don't think you quite understand this Agile thing. So how many of you think or have heard that Cucumber is a good testing tool? Got any hands on that? Not Dale. Yes, yes, Well, Cucumber was written by Aslak, and he said, if you think Cucumber is a testing tool, please read on, because you were wrong. This was in one of his blog posts. So the guy who wrote it says, no, it's not a testing tool. So the most common mistake in using BDD is thinking it's all about testing. Testing is important, but that's not all it's about. So number one, think of BDD, Cucumber, and Gherkin as testing tools. You will be well on your road to doing BDD badly. Aslak also said, Gojko Adzik gave BDD a new and better name, specification by example. Behavior-driven development, BDD, doesn't really tell us what it is we're doing, but whatever it is we're doing, it's the developers who are doing it. And specification by example says that we're writing requirements that include examples. And writing requirements should be a collaborative process with the business analyst and the product owner and the QA and the developers all involved. And if you call it behavior-driven development, the product owners and the business analysts may well say, that excuses us. We don't need to be involved in this. Whatever you want to do, knock yourself out. So Cucumber is a collaboration tool. And specification by example, or BDD, is a methodology for improving collaboration and communication when we are writing requirements and developing software. And Cucumber and Gherkin are tools for enhancing that communication. And oh yes, Cucumber is also a powerful test automation tool, but that's its secondary purpose. So the second thing you can do to do BDD badly is use specification by example, BDD, and Cucumber only in QA and leave out the business analyst and the product owner. And you'll see many companies that are using Cucumber and they say we're using BDD, and the only people involved are the QA team. Maybe also the developers, but often just the QA team. So here's a definitely loaded question for which I'm sure I'll get no positive responses. How many of you think or have heard that Gherkin is a good scripting language? After that first one, no one's going to take the bait on this. The biggest mistake that QA people make is using Gherkin as a scripting language. QA people love to write scripts. We even use the term test scripts as a synonym for automated tests. And when we see a new automation tool, we automatically think scripting tool, but don't think that about Gherkin. Gherkin is a collaboration tool. It's about improving communication and writing requirements, not scripts. So here's a script. Given that the payment method page is displayed, when a valid credit card is entered, and a valid CVV number is entered, and the correct billing address is entered, and then the submit payment button is clicked, then the credit card will be billed. So what is the business purpose of this test? Is it to verify that the credit card number has to be valid in order for a purchase to complete? Or to verify that the CVV must be correct? Or to verify that a completed purchase results in a charge to the credit card? And if this test fails, can you tell the product owner what will be the impact on customers? And really, we can't answer any of these questions from looking at this because this is a script. It's not a business requirement. And will this script work if we translate our web page into French for the Canadian market? Well, no, because we list specific field names and page names in English. And will this script work if we decide to test the API that's behind the website? Well, no, because this script talks about all manner of UI details. So here's a requirement, and it has a business rule. A completed purchase results in a charge to the credit card. This tells us what it is we're going to illustrate here. And then, given a non-free item is in the shopping cart and a valid credit card information has been entered, when the purchase is submitted, then the card will be charged. So when you complete the purchase, then the credit card gets charged. We know what's the business purpose of this. And if we test this requirement and the test fails, we don't have to explain to the product owner what the impact is going to be. The product owner can look at this and easily understand the impact just by reading the scenario title. So this is improving our communication. So back to our script. Will the website contain a SQL query that stores each piece of information into the database? I sure hope not if it's well designed. The website's going to be calling an API that will validate and store all of this information. The website provides the user interface, but the actual business logic is in the back end, not in the website. So we can't test the script against the API, again, because it talks about specific UI things. And the API may have one call that does a bunch of this stuff, and certainly doesn't use these names. Can we test this requirement against the API? Yes, absolutely. Because the requirement talks about function, not about implementation. Can we test this against the French version of our website? Yes, because it talks about function and purpose, not about implementation. So we have improved our communication, and we can also use the same requirements and reuse a ton of source code, if we do it right, when we switch between testing the UI and testing the API. Your classical QA people, they think if you're testing, automating the UI, and then you go automate the API, or vice versa, it's a totally new effort, 100% new code. Not if you do it right. So here's a requirement. This is a scenario outline. And a scenario outline includes an examples table. Is it easy to understand the business purpose of this requirement? A credit card authorization is requested only if the purchase is completed. And here we have this when the purchase is submitted or canceled. When we run this with Cucumber, the first time Cucumber goes through this, it will substitute in the first row out of this examples table. So we will have when the purchase is submitted, then a charge authorization will be requested. That's a valid requirement. And then the second time Cucumber evaluates it, it will be when the purchase is canceled. Then a charge authorization will be not requested. So it's very easy to understand this, and it's also a test case. So the third way to do BDD badly is to write test scripts rather than requirements. These are the three deadly sins. These are systemic process problems. If you can avoid these, then you are well on your way to dramatically improving the entire requirements, develop, test, deliver process. And if you get these pieces right, then you have a good process, and now you only have to implement it well. So how to do it badly? Well, if we're writing requirements, write a bad scenario title. Scenario, complete a purchase. That tells us what we're doing, but not why. It's not a business rule. Scenario titles, requirement titles should state a business rule. Scenario, boy, look at this one. Well, that's a complete regurgitation of everything that we're doing, but again, it doesn't explain why. Way too much detail, no statement of a business rule. Large orders get free shipping. Well, that's vague, and again, no business rule. Scenario titles should always state a business rule. So the gherkin then should illustrate that business rule. And the gherkin must include concrete examples. And the concrete examples should illustrate specific points or specific aspects of the business rule. So the title is a business rule, then you illustrate the business rule with the gherkin, and then you illustrate the gherkin with concrete examples. So, second way to do BDD badly, write requirements that don't include concrete examples. Here's a scenario title: orders above the free shipping amount get free shipping. Given a non-free item is in the shopping cart and the price is greater than $100, is the price concrete? Yes? No? Who votes yes? Who votes no? Nobody wants to vote. Okay. What number is greater than 100? Is it 110? Is it 150? Is it 101 penny? Do we count fractional pennies in this? I don't know. So greater than is never concrete. We have to always specify the actual boundary conditions. And this is a common mistake to say if it's, if they're traveling more than 50 miles an hour, okay, how much more? So your examples must be concrete. Here is the same requirement with two examples, and these examples are concrete. $99.99, the shipping will be billed. $100.00, the shipping will be free. How likely do you think it is that you as developers will get this wrong? It's very, very difficult to misunderstand that. And a very, very clear requirement like this gives the product owner greater confidence that we as developers will actually deliver what the product owner wants. I like to talk about two kinds of bugs: little b bugs and big B bugs. Little b bugs are like mosquitoes. They're the ones where the code doesn't do what you intended it to do. You typed less than or equal where you should have typed less than. The text entry box isn't quite big enough for the data that's supposed to go in it, or the database field isn't quite large enough. Big B bugs are hairy, black things that fill up about a fourth of this room, and those are the ones where the code does exactly what the developers intended. It's just not what the product owner wanted. And we may have spent 2 or 3 sprints of the entire team writing really good, clean, highly maintainable code with lots of unit tests. And we can now throw it away because it wasn't what the product owner wanted. So, third way to do this badly, talk about the interface. We've already seen a little bit of example. Here's our favorite scenario: a completed purchase results in a charge to the credit card, given that we are on the checkout screen. When we submit the purchase for processing, should the credit card be charged, even if we started from some screen other than the checkout screen? The product owner probably wants it that way. If you were looking at today's specials, you've already got some things in your shopping cart, and you're looking at some today's specials, and you decide you don't want any, so you click checkout and submit your order. Well, you weren't on the checkout screen at first, but should your credit card still be charged? Well, yes. So we're throwing in interface details that are irrelevant to the requirement. And suppose you ordered through the mobile app, and the mobile app calls the checkout screen something different. Should your credit card still be charged? The product owner sure hopes so. And suppose you decide to test ordering through the API, which doesn't have a checkout screen. Should the credit card be charged? Yes, absolutely. So talk again about the interface. A special handling surcharge must be approved by the customer. Here's the exception to the previous rule. When the requirement is specifically a UI requirement, here it says, then a pop-up will show the surcharge. That is clearly a UI requirement that says, I want the user to see in front of their eyeballs the surcharge. You can't test that through an API. You've got to test that through the UI. So here it is correct to talk about the interface. Use superfluous language. Here's our orders above the free shipping amount get free shipping. Given a non-free item is in the shopping cart, and the price for this item is $100. Do we need the words for this item? If there's no difference in clarity, then use fewer words. It's very clear here, given the non-free item is in the shopping cart and the price is $100. Well, it's obvious what we're referring to. So you don't need the extra words. When the purchase is submitted by the user, who but the user is going to submit the purchase? Probably don't need by the user. Again, if the requirement would be just as clear without including those words, then use fewer words. The fewer words we use, the fewer words that all of us have to read and understand. And we want to make it really easy for the developers to look at a requirement and know what it means. The more words that we have to read, the harder it is to be certain that we understand what it means. When we mean the same thing, we should always say it exactly the same way. And when we say it the same way, it should always mean exactly the same thing. If we follow this rule, we're giving the developers and the testers confidence. They read it and they think, I've seen these words before, I know what they mean. I've already written the code, I know that I can reuse the code. And if one word is different, they know that that difference is significant. And they think this word is different. I have to understand that difference before I implement it. And if we include lots of extra words, then we make it harder for the developers to spot significant differences. Another way to do it badly, use an excessively large examples table. We've already seen what an examples table is, so here let's talk about an ATM. We're withdrawing money from our account. Given an account with a starting balance, when we make a withdrawal, then the new balance is, and here's our examples table. Starting balance is 100, or 150, or 250. Withdrawal amount is $10, $20, or $30. Well, how much value are we adding by giving examples of different withdrawal amounts? Do we believe that developers and computers can do math? Yeah, probably so. So we really only need 2 examples of each one. If we have only one example of starting balance, they could have a horrible error in there and they've hard-coded the starting balance, or they're reading it from the wrong place. Same thing for the withdrawal. But if you have two examples, you've got enough. You don't need 3. We should only use examples that illustrate unique aspects of the business rule. We should only include those examples that illustrate boundary conditions, because we have to program for boundary conditions. And we should ask the product owner, are there any other important examples? Are there any scenarios that have different outcomes? And that will help us learn what are the boundary conditions and therefore the important examples that we must include in our requirements. Generally, you know, if your examples table gets larger than about 4 rows by 8 columns or 8 rows by 4 columns, then it's going to be difficult to understand. So if that happens, we may need to split the requirement into 2 requirements, or we could use 2 example tables for 1 requirement. Cucumber allows that. Behave in the Python world allows that. I'm pretty sure SpecFlow allows that. So rather than using 1 huge examples table, we can split the table into multiple examples tables, use 1 table for each category of examples. So 1 table that illustrates taxes for different states, and a different table that illustrates taxes for different products. However it makes sense to split it up. Try to illustrate multiple rules in 1 requirement. I've certainly seen this. Scenario: orders above the free shipping amount get free shipping unless they require special handling, or they require additional insurance, or they are shipped to. Do you think that you can write a clear requirement that illustrates all of these special cases? And how large will your examples table be? So I would definitely split this requirement into several simple requirements. 1 for free shipping, 1 for special handling, 1 for additional insurance, 1 for being shipped to South Georgia Island, 2,000 miles from South Africa in the Atlantic. Confuse when with then. These are all common errors. Here's a good one. An ATM that is out of money should display an error message when a withdrawal is requested. Given an ATM that has no cash and a withdrawal has been requested, when no cash is dispensed, then an error message is displayed. Now, how does the developer read this requirement? The developer reads this as when this event happens. This event comes to me, to my code, and I must write code to handle this event. So, is no cash being dispensed an event? It's not an action, it's not an event. And the when must always be an action. It must be something that our code will process. So in this case, what was the action? The no cash being dispensed is an outcome. The action was that someone requested a withdrawal, and the machine doesn't have any. So somebody requested a withdrawal, the ATM has no cash, that's what causes no cash to be dispensed. So here's how we would write that. When a withdrawal is requested, that's an action. That's going to come to your software, and you're going to process it, and you're going to look at the preconditions, test them, and if those preconditions are met, then your code must produce the expected result. Then no cache is dispensed and an error message is displayed. That you can do. Write similar requirements different ways. We've already talked about this a little bit. Given an active customer account, given a customer account, given an active account, given a customer account that is active, I think you get the point. If we are sloppy with our wording, we make it more difficult to achieve this collaboration and communication, which is the entire purpose of BDD, or specification by example. Think of it this way. As developers, we understand that we're going to take these requirements and we're going to, or the QA team is going to create an interpreter that interprets these requirements, and then we'll run them against our implementation, either our API or our 3 different UIs, web, iOS, Android, whatever the interfaces are. And if we're writing an interpreter, so we're creating a domain-specific language when we create our requirements, how many different ways should we say the same thing in our domain-specific language? Not many. You know, how difficult would it be to read Java if there were 6 different ways of writing a when loop? You know, it would be more confusing. So we should agree on the wording and then use that wording very consistently. Do we have customers or clients or users or owners? What is the correct terminology for our business? Let's figure it out with the product owner and then use that terminology consistently. Do we have accounts or memberships? By doing this work up front, we write much more consistent requirements. We increase that understanding, that shared understanding that prevents us from creating those big B bugs. So we should write similar requirements different ways if we want to do this badly. Given a free item is in the shopping cart, given a non-refundable item is in the shopping cart, given a price item is in the shopping cart, all of those, we put the one single piece that changes in the same place. We're being very, very consistent. And now I can write one single piece of code that handles all of these because it's got a parameter right there after given A and before item. I can pick out that parameter, process it, handle it, and I can write one piece of code and it'll handle all of your different permutations of an item in the shopping cart. And it's easier to understand. So going back, think of BDD, Cucumber, and Gherkin as testing tools. Use BDD or specification by example and Cucumber only in QA. Leave out the business analyst and the product owner. Write test scripts rather than requirements. If you get these pieces right, then you have a good process. You have to now implement it well. And if you do these, if you avoid these errors, then you are well on your way to dramatically improving the entire requirements development, test, deliver process. I worked with a bunch of data scientists at United Technologies. And when I first went in there, I didn't find this out until much later, they went to my manager multiple times, moaning and complaining. This is too hard. We do not like this. This is not helpful. Fire him. and my manager politely refused. And then the last year that I was working with those teams, they shipped into production maybe 2 bugs. We debated whether we should really call them bugs or not. And at that point, they were really good friends of mine. I was consistently giving them automated tests for all of the old work and all of the new requirements in Sprint. They changed their process. Instead of opening a pull request, getting the code reviewed, merging it into the development branch, and then having the CI/CD system run all the tests, they would just run the tests locally. And they didn't open the PR until the test passed. So they eliminated a whole bunch of looping around from, oh, the CI/CD says the test failed. What's wrong? Let's go find it. Okay, who made that check-in? Okay, who broke the code, broke the build. They no longer needed a defect life cycle. If you're not shipping defects, if they never get into a pull request, much less into the development branch, why do you need any mechanism for tracking defects? Why do you need a mechanism? Why do you even need to record a defect that has a life expectancy at the longest of a few hours? Maybe if you found it at 5 in the afternoon and you're about to go home, and well, it'll live overnight until you come back in the morning, but nobody else but you has that code. So, write a bad scenario title, write requirements that don't include concrete examples, talk about the interface, use superfluous language, use an excessively large examples table, try to illustrate multiple rules in one requirement, confuse when with then, and write similar requirements different ways. And I should add, I've done all of these. I tell when I teach this class, I tell the students, all of us, the first time we write Gherkin, we will write bad Gherkin, because it's something new to us. It's something we have to change the way we think. We're not writing unit tests. This is not TDD. We're not writing test cases. We're certainly not writing scripts. We're writing requirements. We have to change the way we think. And until we do, and and we illustrate this so often, people show their results and go, oh, well, that's not concrete, is it? Oh, yeah, that's not really a business rule for the title, is it? And they learn. We all learn. So what are the advantages of doing this? Well, it's got significant advantages for the organization, not just QA. Requirements written this way are more precise. They're easier to understand. The product owners benefit because they have a higher probability, they know they have a higher probability of the developers delivering what it is the product owner wants, because it's easier to understand what they want. The business analysts benefit, the developers benefit. How many of you have in any of your jobs consistently had full test automation in Sprint? That means regression tests and test for new requirements that you're developing in this sprint? Anybody at all? I see some heads shaking. Yeah, it's how many of you would like to have that? It's a really nice thing. And as I said, after we started doing that, the developers became my friends. Oh, me. The QAs certainly benefit. There's no more cram down. Oh, the developers used up 3/4 of the schedule, and now the QA team has to get it done by, 3 days from now, because that's all the time that's left in the schedule. The product owner has a more precise understanding of what the requirements mean. We can communicate back and forth. We've already said, has greater confidence that the product owner, that the developers will deliver what we actually want as the product owner. The product owner can immediately understand the test results. If you've ever worked closely with the QA team, you know that there's always this humongous effort of maintaining a requirements traceability matrix. If I run this test case and it fails, which requirements does that impact? You don't even need that. Completely eliminate that when you do this well, because Cucumber generates a report showing all of the requirements that were run. And each requirement is either green or red. How difficult is that to interpret? And you're reading a requirement, not a test case, not a script. The business analyst has to do just as much work up front, maybe even a little bit more, but they don't have any more work to do once the requirements are delivered. They get no phone calls, they get no emails, they get no instant messages, they have nobody stopping by their desk asking, what does this requirement mean? I introduced this methodology at General Motors, and the business analysts themselves made the decision that they were going to transition over from narrative requirements to this way of writing requirements. And 6 months later, they told me this list of things. These are the things that I no longer have. I have to do just as much work up front, maybe even a little bit more work. But we will never go back to the old narrative requirements. They said, we'll never go back because this is so much better. So the developers get more precise requirements, spend less time writing the wrong functionality, those big B bugs. Have automated tests while they're still writing the code. If we write the requirements correctly, the developers have a list of all of the boundary conditions. And that's what we have to code for. And every boundary condition is essentially either a line of code or it is a case in a case statement. BNP Paribas, a large French multinational bank, introduced BDD and TDD and reduced the amount of time that their developers spent fixing defects from 40% to between 1% and 2%. It took 9 months. It was not magic. But it also wasn't rocket science. It's something that they can look at and understand. Vanguard Financial, similar results. So the developers then spend less time fixing bugs. How many of us enjoy fixing bugs? We wake up in the morning and go, oh, there's a bug, I remember it from yesterday. I'm going to have so much fun fixing that. Particularly if it's a bug that shows up after a 2-week cycle of QA and you have no idea what line of code you changed, because you've changed hundreds since then. On the other hand, if you've got the tests sitting there waiting for you, and you run them, and one of them comes back red, you go, wait a second, that thing ran this morning, passed. It's red now. And you think back to what you changed, and you're likely to find it very quickly. The QAs get more precise requirements. Don't have to translate the requirements into test cases, because the requirements are the test cases. Huge advantage for the QAs. And can deliver the automated tests to the developers in Sprint. And they find fewer bugs, which is something that's counterintuitive until you sit and think about it. One of the metrics for many QA teams is how many bugs did you find? We want to find lots of bugs. Well, if you're delivering the automated tests to the developers before they open the PRs, guess how many bugs you're going to find? You're going to find this many. But that's good. We've got to educate our managers that, hey, the number of bugs we find is going to go down as we get better at this. And the number of bugs recorded in our tracking system is going to go down as we get better at this. The number of bugs shipped into production is going to go down as we get better at this. So your company delivers the correct software earlier and delivers fewer bugs into production, and probably your managers are going to like that. So additional learning, do not Google Gherkin tutorial or Cucumber tutorial or BDD tutorial. I have a blog post on my website. I think 9 of the 10 top hits when I Googled BDD tutorial, right, first page of the website says, Cucumber is a great testing tool. And you go, well, the guy who wrote Cucumber says that's not what it is. And then they tell you, you go to the next website and it says Gherkin is a powerful scripting language. And you go, no, it shouldn't be. So don't do that. But if you go to the bddcoach.com/learning, you'll find some good references. If you go to cucumber.io, the website for Cucumber Limited, Aslak's company, you'll definitely find some great blogs. And so, do we have questions? No. Do we have any questions online? Are the people able to send a chat and ask a question?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay. All right, that's it then. I hope you all enjoyed it.